Hey guys, welcome to the Garbage Time Podcast. I'm your host, Katie Nolan. Today I'm joined by producer Dave.
Hey yo.
Hey yo. And also joined by new podcast minds. Before we get started, I want to tell you about Rhone, a new men's activewear company that uses the most innovative fabrics on the planet. Men finally have a premium activewear option that combines performance, comfort, and style. Every piece has a performance component to it, like 4-way stretch and rapid moisture wicking to keep you dry. Their clothes also have an amazing feel and are designed to be comfortable and sophisticated. You won't be a walking billboard and won't feel out of place wearing their stuff to either the gym or to the bar afterwards.
Sweet.
Rhone also uses an anti-odor technology called Silver Tech that fends off odor causing bacteria growth for the lifetime of their clothes. And they were cool enough to send some stuff to our producers.
Yeah.
Dave, what did you get?
I got these cool board shorts, and yeah, they're super comfortable, like nice and thin, like you don't feel like you're wearing like a heavy bathing suit, and they are like cool shorts, and I'm like, oh, I could just like wear these out, but I could also go swimming in them and look cool, so I'm happy about it.
And if someone were to spill something on you at the bar, it'd just wick away.
Exactly.
Is that how
Perfect.
that works?
Yeah, the moisture will wick away.
I don't know because
pretty
I'm
psyched.
not a man, so I can't wear any of these things. But to check out their brand new summer collection, visit rhone.com/garbagetime. That's RHONE.com/garbagetime. And right now they're offering an inside deal for 15% off your first order when you enter code GARBAGETIME at checkout. All one word, no spaces. Again, that's RHONE.com/garbagetime. And then use the code GARBAGETIME, all one word, no spaces, for 15% off your first order. All right, coming up in a bit, you're going to hear my chat with this week's guest, Jonah Keri. Fascinating stuff. Baseball trade deadline was this week, so talked a lot about that and about a million other things because Jonah and I's brains work kind of the same in that they go wherever they feel like at any given moment. But first, obviously, we have to talk about the Bachelorette finale.
It was big.
It was big, Dave. It was three fucking hours long.
It was the most dramatic finale in Bachelorette history.
Which, if that's true, then it's never been dramatic.
It's
because
not true.
Holy shit. Like, the problem with us engaging in Bachelorette conversations, for me, is that on weeks when I'm kind of chilling, totally fine. On weeks when I'm busy, finding 3 fucking hours of my day to sit and watch is so hard.
It's a lot.
It's so hard. Like this weekend, I was in Miami on Saturday, LA on Sunday, and Monday had to be back here working. Or no, I was flying back.
Right.
Whole day on a plane.
Yeah.
And then Tuesday, Wednesday making the show. And I'm like, when am I going to watch? But
And
I
it's
did
even
it.
more frustrating when you watch the 3 hours and you're like, this could have been 20 minutes.
Could have been
Yeah.
20 minutes.
100%.
I did figure out a way to watch it on abc.com with my ad blocker on, which saves me so much time.
Look at you.
Yeah,
You're
I
like a
hacked it.
vet.
I'm kind of like a part-time hacker.
Pretty much.
So I watched it.
Yeah.
Luckily, it's the last one I have to watch.
How'd you feel? What are your big takeaways?
Nothing fucking happened.
Right? I 100% agree.
But that didn't stop me from taking 2 note cards worth of notes.
Copious notes.
Just to remind myself of the things that bothered me. So
Okay.
I'll run through like things I have
Yeah.
here, and then we can use them as jumping off points. We won't talk about all of them because really some of them are just like Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders ? So we'll get to it.
All right.
First of all, this is the episode. It's down to MacGruber and the dog whose ear flipped the wrong way. In that
Very
it's
good
Robbie and
description.
Jordan.
Yeah.
And by the way, did you see? Somebody tweeted at me Robbie's college photo.
Yes.
He looks like fucking MacGruber.
Yeah.
So
it's a great call by you.
It's really
Yeah.
happening.
I hope it catches on.
This is the episode where she's gonna pick one, right? And she says, when I'm with one, I'm just thinking of the other. Right off the bat of the episode, and it's like, then guess what? You're not ready to be engaged.
Yes, exactly.
Also, could mean that because you don't really like either of them.
Yeah. It should be like, I can only think about this person only. When you're actually ready to get engaged, that's how you're supposed to feel.
Like, I don't know if it got produced in a way that they're lying when they say, like, this is the day before I might propose to JoJo. But if it is literally the day before and she's going on a date with 2 different guys to decide which she wants to fucking marry, I know that's the point of the show and you're supposed to buy in, but are you fucking kidding me? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And then from then on out, I'm just angry
Right.
at this entire episode.
Believe you.
also awkward that she sat down when she's with her parents and she said, like, we've started with 26 guys and we've narrowed it down to 2. My dad would be like, please tell me less.
Yeah, I don't want to hear
Please tell me
about all
less about
this.
the 26 guys you dated at once. Please tell me less.
I'm not comfortable with this.
My baby girl. Please
Yeah,
stop.
That's a good point.
This was the most interesting takeaway for me about the episode. When Jordan meets her parents and they're like, what do you like about JoJo? And he's like, we have such a fun relationship. Like, we make fun of each other a lot. Like, we give each other a hard time. And the first thing I thought was, we never see fucking any of that.
Totally agree. Ever. You never see them laughing.
You don't see any.
No, they're never laughing. It's
and then
always
I realized
serious.
The entire show, from like episode 2 or 3, when she narrows it down from like everybody to like, all they ever talk about in their dates that we see is their relationship.
Yeah. That's all we have. All they ever show us. How about showing us, like, you want us to buy into the fact that, like, they're falling in love? Show us actual moments where real people, like, are getting to know each other, actually, like, laughing or, joking.
They never date.
No.
They don't date. They talk about their dating.
So today, what do you think about going to the waterfalls today? How do you feel about that?
I really worry about, like, are you really in this for the long term? And I just want one of them to go, in what?
Yes.
I don't even know what your middle name is.
Yeah, I don't.
Like, what are you talking about? Hey, remember that time we sat down and ate dinner and talked about the thing we did earlier in the day, which was probably an aerial activity like a plane or something?
Yeah.
What do you don't have, there's nothing there. There's no memories. It's so weird.
It is really frustrating.
The whole show is about, but then you sort of think about, is that what the show is? Or is that a statement about what dating is now? Because you think about it, and the thing that most surprised me as like an adult that dates, because it's obviously different when you're in high school and in college, because you're in like a place where there's more options than you could possibly know what to do with. When you reach a certain age, maybe this is just my personal experience, but you like date someone for a couple dates and then like you're in, right? And it's assumed you're like dating. And if you bring up something like, oh, I'm actually learning I really don't like this thing about you, maybe we aren't right for each other, people are like, are you breaking up with me? It's like, well, yeah, but like it's not that big of a deal. We just started dating, but I've learned I don't like this thing. That's what dating is. It's to learn. Dating has become not learning. It's like you're committed now. We're dating.
All in.
It's like I learned I don't like you, and that never happens on this show.
No.
Maybe that's why they don't ever talk about anything but their relationship, because otherwise they'll learn they don't like each other, and then the whole show's fucked.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is really uplifting.
What else? No, I know. We're really talking about love.
I'm skipping past the non-important ones.
Okay.
Her dad telling Robbie, her dad said to Robbie, JoJo loves you. That's fucked up, Dad.
Yeah, it's like, I haven't said it yet.
I can't tell him that. And so you can't tell him that, because if I don't pick him, which, spoiler alert, she didn't.
No.
Now Robbie's like, well, she said she loved me. Like, that's such a weird that he, like, felt he could say something like that.
Yeah, super awkward.
After they met with her parents, I found myself on Team MacGruber.
Interesting.
Like, real hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so is part of that because Jordan did not ask the father for her hand in marriage?
No, because later, when she brought that up to him, for those of you who don't watch, which I hope is all of you, Robbie asked her parents for their daughter's hand in marriage, and Jordan didn't, and I guess Jordan previously expressed that he would never propose if he hadn't asked, and so then JoJo was like, wait, what? He didn't ask? Oh my God, which I was like, okay, again, you haven't even said I love you yet, so that's weird. And then when she brought it up later, Jordan was like, yeah, I've always pictured that moment of asking your father, or the father of the woman I love, for his daughter's hand in marriage. But I always pictured it as the dad knowing that she loved me and knowing that I was the one, not being right after the dad just told somebody else you could have her hand in marriage. You're essentially saying, to be perfectly clear, there's no other way around it, you're saying the blessing means fucking nothing.
Yeah.
Because if you have my blessing, Robbie, to propose to my daughter, and then you turn around and say, you have my blessing, Jordan, to propose to my daughter, you haven't given either of them your blessing because you chose them both. And that's not how this works. You give someone the blessing to marry your daughter when you believe in the relationship. You just met this guy, you just met that guy, and you just told them both you're good to go. Yeah. That's not how that works. So she just wants a guy who's going to do all those little, she's just checking off like tick marks. She's going, okay, he has to say I love you. So he didn't say I love you, Luke, so I'm getting rid of him. Because you're supposed to say I love you. You're supposed to ask for my dad's hand and my dad's blessing. He didn't ask. It's like, they're not meaningless boxes that you're checking.
No.
Like, they're supposed to say "I love you" when you both are in
you're
love with each
ready.
other.
It's
You're
nuts.
supposed to say, ask for permission when you both have decided that you want to get married. Like, you
It's
can't
insane.
give your hand to two different people, or you'd have two. Well, I guess you do have two hands, but the ring only goes
hand.
on the left one.
Right.
So you're giving one of them the right hand, and that hand does nothing
Yeah, no.
except probably hand jobs.
Ooh,
She looks
okay.
like a hand job kind of
She could be.
person.
So here's my conspiracy theory.
Okay.
I think that Jordan not asking for the father's blessing was completely produced. I think that it was so obvious to everyone involved in making this show that she was picking Jordan.
So there needed
and they
to
were
be
like,
a-
how do we milk 2 hours out of the potential of Jordan not winning? How do we try to misdirect the audience into thinking maybe Robbie has a chance? And they're like, let's use this asking father for his blessing thing. And they're like, everyone's in on this, Jordan. You're not going to ask. That'll be something you and JoJo will fight about. And then that way, like, there will be some doubt at the end, because otherwise there would have been no doubt. So
Yeah.
that's my theory on that. What
That's
do
a
you think?
good point. Because then when they go on their dates and she sees Robbie and she goes, "Hi, oh my goodness." I'm like, you don't even know this person.
Right.
That's how I would greet a stranger.
Yeah.
I don't run up to my boyfriend and go,
hey.
"Hi,
hey."
oh my goodness."
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, what?
Right.
What are you doing?
Agreed. It just, to me, they tried so hard to make us think Robbie had a chance, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is just
But also,
overkill.
Robbie was so sweet in that episode,
But like
and he was like,
overly
but he was
sweet.
genuine.
Oh, I didn't buy it. Come on, like it was just all over the top. It's like, Robbie, you're playing the role of the like person who's giving her everything she wants. You're saying, "I love you" first. You're asking for the blessing. You're just showering her with love in the
So
future.
God forbid he do the thing she wants.
Right, but still, it just felt like it's like
You want to talk
it was
over the top?
Yes, I do.
Over the top was all the fucking shit they did with Jordan when she was reading their letters that they sent right before they were going to go to the final ceremony. They show him holding the ring that he picked out, and the camera is dramatically below him, looking up at him, and the focus pulls from the ring to his face, and he's just staring at it. Like, that's a producer or a director going, now gaze at the ring as if you're really thinking
Yep.
about JoJo. Action. Like, what person sees that and
No,
goes,
right.
what a genuine moment he's having with that ring?
Yeah.
Then they repo the camera, and the ring is on a table. The camera's in a room with the doors closed. Jordan slides the door open. You can see he walks forward, hits his mark. Literally, you see him hit his mark, button his suit jacket, pick up the ring, and walk past the camera. That is a thing they shot probably 5 times. And it immediately took me out of like, are we fucking serious
it
with
was
this?
insane.
Like, watching him get ready to propose was just gross. It was so overproduced.
And they also do it with Robbie too. And my favorite part of the Robbie one, I don't know if you caught this, but they show him in the shower, like a shot of him shower. His
Yeah, I caught
hair,
it.
perfect. Hair not wet at all.
No.
It's as if he's like, I'll do this, but there's no way I'm messing my hair up. He's like, that's my
I
identity.
know, even when they had
Yeah.
their date on the beach.
He's like, no way. Yeah.
Oh my God, the underwater kiss with Robbie also.
can't.
Let's
It was-
never
it
do
was-
that again.
it
The
was-
music was
ugh.
like, it like reached a crescendo, and meanwhile it's like the murkiest water ever. It's Thailand. It's not like blue, clear water.
Yeah,
It's
it was just
weird.
insane. I mean, like we watched an entire season of a show whose ending was obvious from the like first
Yeah,
30
exactly.
minutes. Of
I
episode
mean,
one.
we knew that.
We knew it. Yeah.
I will also say they drink a lot on this show, and you never really think that they're drunk.
Yeah.
But I thought JoJo was drunk this episode.
Yeah.
When her and Jordan canoed or whatever the fuck. I don't do water sports.
Yeah, I think it was
to
kayaking.
an island.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
sure. What's the difference?
I
don't know.
Yeah, big.
Water sported themselves to an island where there was wine. Like,
Hmm.
what did you bring that in your canoe, yak? Anyway, so she's like sipping on her wine. They're talking about the fact that he didn't ask for her hand in marriage. And she's like, yeah, let's talk about that. And then he's like, yeah, it was really cool meeting your family and blah, 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 blah. And I got to talk to your dad. And she goes, what did you guys talk about? And the second she said it, I rewound it and watched it again. And she goes, like, looking down, like, so what did you guys talk about?
That's
And like, oh my God, she is white girl wasted.
That's
She
funny.
is white wine, white girl, middle of the day, day
Yeah.
drinking, wasted.
That's amazing.
And that's why
Great
he keeps making
find.
great points. And the whole time she's
Same.
going, I am so confused. It's like, because you're fucked up. You're so drunk.
That's
And then
good.
you like boated yourself here. Like, that's
Oh
not
man,
safe.
that's funny stuff. Any other big takeaways you had before?
Main takeaway that this show is so fucking selfish and dumb.
Yeah.
Like at every point, she's like, I'm so hurt that he didn't ask for my father. It's like, aren't you thinking about the fact that you are literally cheating on the guy you're going to quote unquote marry up until the day before you decide you're going to marry him? That's insane.
It's insane.
Like there are people I know who have been dating and a guy will cheat on her, a girl will cheat on him. Somebody fucks up and they were maybe going to get engaged. And they break up because they just had sex with someone else. This person had sex with someone else, said I love you to someone else, essentially, like told them she's falling in love with them, like kissing them, going on dates with them the day before they get engaged. That's fucking so insane. And she's complaining that she thinks they might not treat her right. Like if you take I know it's the point of the show, but if you like take a step back, you're treating them like fucking shit.
Yeah, and then you like fast forward to like the moment right before Jordan proposes. She'd just broken up with Robbie, and she's talking about like my heart is broken.
She said, "I wrote my heart is broken."
Oh, good. There you go.
There was actually a Jekyll Hyde moment where I'm waiting for it because I'm like, how's she going to transition from my heart is broken that I just had to say goodbye to Robbie? And she's like, this doesn't feel right. And she's sobbing. And all of a sudden she's like, all that would make me feel better right now is Jordan. I just need Jordan to get here. And then I am so excited to be engaged, like on camera. I thought they would cut and then have her do...
Not the
on
best
camera,
actress,
you
not the
see
best
her
actress.
face go from tears to like, I just want Jordan to be here, and I can't wait to marry Jordan. It was like, what?
It's like, no, dude. It was like the producer's like, no, wait, JoJo, that's a separate scene.
Yeah, we should do these
We
in
need you
two
to finish
separate
crying,
confessionals.
and then we'll like make it seem like it's later.
It was the weirdest,
so freaking weird.
Weirdest thing. Then when they're picking out rings,
Oh God.
I just kept
That's
thinking,
a commercial.
At first, I'm like, oh, they don't even have to buy them. And I'm like, what is 3 months salary for a former competitive swimmer and former football player?
Yeah, it's zero. So
zero
they paid
times
the
3
appropriate
is
amount.
0, so they got them for free.
That's smart.
Robbie made a huge mistake leaving the notebook shreds on the side of his note.
Ooh.
Jordan's was very perfectly manicured.
Yeah,
Robbie's
says a
was like
lot.
ripped out of a fucking 5-star.
Yeah, where's your
Like,
commitment, bro?
At least use the ones with the perforated.
Yeah. 5-star. That's a great poll.
Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders were in the audience of the after the rose ceremony, and like nobody even what's the host's name?
Chris Harrison.
I always want to say Chris Hansen, but that's the guy from the Rapey show.
Yeah.
Chris Harrison is the one from this show.
Yes.
He was like, welcome back to the Bachelorette finale. I'm here with the always wonderful Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. They're just sitting in the audience. People clapped, and then he's like, all right, back to the action. I'm like, what are they there for? You're in LA.
Yeah, it was like
Never
Dallas.
addressed.
Remember, they're moving to Dallas.
Never
It was
addressed
insane.
why those cheerleaders were there.
Speaking of football, though, how about how hard Jordan did not want to talk about Aaron when Chris Harrison asked him?
Well, we're not at after the rose yet,
Oh, sorry.
but you're right. He said, like, we've got furniture to pick
Yeah,
out.
like it was just insane. He's like,
I've got an armchair to pick out for me to
It's like,
quarterback
whoa,
out of the
okay.
next day.
Yeah, exactly. That was good.
Thank you.
That's well done.
When she broke up with Robbie, she looked like she was reenacting a scene she saw in a movie. 100%. Because she was like, no, Robbie. Like, he looked kind of genuine about, like, he didn't want to look.
You.
But then she kept going, look at me. No, look at me. And tried to put her face in front of his face. And he just kept trying to get away from her. And then she was like, I'm so sorry. Like, held his face.
It was weird.
It
When
was
she was saying, I wanted it to be you, I had like flashbacks to like The Godfather when he's like, I know it was you. I know it was you, Frida. I'm like, this is weird.
I wanted it to be you. Okay, then pick me. I would have said, okay, then pick me.
Yeah, you know what?
bitch.
It can be me. Weird.
Yeah, no shit. I wrote, I've never done anything this fucked up to a guy in my life. That's just a personal observation.
That's good. You're a bigger person than she is for that.
Exactly. I wrote, my heart is broken. You're engaged. Like, that's weird.
Dude.
At one point they cut to a girl in the audience that just had a cheese head on when they mentioned Aaron Rodgers. Like, let's talk about his relationship with Aaron Rodgers. And they cut to one girl with a cheese head on.
That's great.
And you know they gave her that when she got there.
Obviously.
Blah, 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 blah. Oh, there's one point where he said something like, Jordan said, if she says no, this will be the biggest letdown of my entire life. And I thought, do you remember your NFL career?
It's like, remember when you were trying to be
Are
an
you
NFL
kidding
quarterback
me?
and it didn't work
The
out?
biggest letdown
That's
of
a
your life
letdown.
would be if the girl you proposed to that was just dating a guy 13 minutes prior
That you've known
says
for 3
no.
weeks, yeah.
Like, that will be your biggest disappointment, not the fact that your brother is a wildly successful NFL quarterback and you are garbage at it.
Yeah.
I'm mad at him. I'm more mad at him than I thought I was.
Yeah.
Okay, and then after the rose,
Yeah.
the one boob dress, I didn't like it. didn't
I
understand
also
her-
didn't like what's
titty.
up with the weird turtleneck part of the
Yeah,
dress.
I mean,
It's
she
like,
makes
that's
some
not
interesting
cool.
fashion
I'm
decisions,
not
but I
into
mean,
that.
at least there wasn't a cutout in it, right, Ashley? All season, cutouts. She just had cutouts on every dress.
Yeah.
And now she's like, I'm gonna just pull out just my right tit, which I've said before is what I do on a date. But she's engaged. She shouldn't be pulling out one tit. And also Ben and Lauren in the audience. Why do they make them do that? They just keep cutting to them.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm like, is this weird? It's like JoJo and Ben
Fucked.
slept together.
They
yeah.
fucked.
I'm like, so this is pretty awkward that they're like, they'll give you some great advice, guys. It's like, that's her ex-boyfriend, kind of. Like, this is weird.
My favorite thing was that the third or fifth or 90th time they cut to them, and Chris Harrison was clearly uncomfortable. There was dead silence because Jordan and JoJo were giving him nothing because they don't even look like they like each other. And he said, Ben and Lauren in the audience, and just pointed, and they all turned to look.
Say something stretch.
And Ben goes, you just see Ben. I wish I could describe this for our audio listeners, but you see Ben just kind of shrug and be like, hello again.
Yeah.
Like he waved and was like, what do you fucking want from me?
He's like, in case you don't remember my season, I don't have much to say.
Yeah, like he just shrugged and was like, hey, I don't want to keep talking about my ex-girlfriend next to are they engaged, him and Lauren?
Yeah.
Is that her
For
name?
sure.
Lauren?
Yeah.
I just don't fucking
Lauren
care.
B, Pound Town. You know.
I'm going to be, that's right, Pound Town.
Yeah.
I'm going to be completely honest.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's over.
Wow.
I am
Okay.
so relieved that this fucking show is over. I'm sick of 3 hours of my life getting taken by producers that are just trying to pull one over on me. If you could make The Bachelorette 30 minutes, I'm in. But I can't
All
do
right.
this
You
shit
hear that,
anymore.
Bachelorette producers. You
Especially
want
when,
Katie in.
I've had to sacrifice watching sports
Not
to
cool.
watch The Bachelorette.
Not cool.
And I'm sick of it. And there's been mixed reactions from people that have tweeted at me. I know some people like it and some people hate it. I don't think we can do Bachelorette in Paradise.
Oh, Bachelor in Paradise.
I mean,
yeah.
whatever it's
Yeah,
called.
no. I like myself too much as a human to take deep dives into Bachelor in Paradise.
But I will say, I just from a very surface level skimming, I heard that Chad pooped his pants and got eliminated on the first day. So I don't know if
spoiler
maybe
alert.
that means you win Bachelor in Paradise. I don't know what winning
don't
is on
know.
that show.
Yeah.
I think maybe if you poop your pants and get sent home, maybe you are the real winner.
You are, yeah.
But it was.
Yeah.
I don't need to see that.
I can't do it.
If I wanted to see a drunk aggro dude poop his pants and leave, I would just go on more dates. You know
Perfect.
what I mean?
You're in.
Yeah.
All right. Goodbye, Bachelorette.
Goodbye,
It's been fun.
Bachelorette. We have
been
to
fun.
figure out what we're gonna do now on the podcast.
Yep. Yeah. We're gonna be switching it up.
Should we ask up the viewers
Yeah.
to tweet at us?
Listeners, viewers.
He's at Easton,
Yep.
Easton, and I'm at Katie Nolan. Tweet at us or at Garbage-Time and let us know what you this little space before the interview. We can play around with some fun
want?
stuff because until football season starts, we can't do fade that pick.
Yeah. We're getting
So,
close though. I'm
yeah,
getting
we are.
pumped.
We could do an extended junk mail where you guys ask more questions. We could do a host chat where I talk about shit going on in my
Stuff.
life, like the goddamn Teen Choice Awards, which was a clusterfuck.
Oh man.
I walked
hear
a
more
red
about
carpet and people looked at me like, who are you?
Oh.
Which is fine because I also walk through my life thinking, who am I? But when you're supposed to be there for work, it was just an awful. I hated it. I took a picture and was like, I'm going to just walk. And I stopped and talked to Carissa because she does extra.
Yep.
Is that? Yeah.
Yeah,
And we talked for a little, and then it was just as friends. She put her microphone down because nobody wants to talk to me. It was a thing.
All right.
It
You did
was
great.
fun.
Then.
The
Cool.
teens scream.
A lot of wooing. A lot of
They
wooing,
scream
right?
when you show Justin Bieber on the screen, even when he's not there. They are screaming.
Ugh.
It's awful. Teens, you're weird. You're weird teens. They're like YouTube celebrities. Everyone there looked like they were in a boy band, but no one there was in a boy band. Not one of them. They all just, for a living, go on YouTube and say,
Stuff.
hey, yo, here's what I did today.
I will never get that.
And girls love it.
Oh, man.
I did graze Uncle Jesse's butt with my left hand.
Ooh.
I acted like it was an accident. It wasn't.
Oh.
It wasn't an accident. Uncle Jesse's butt. It's a pretty nice butt.
It's awesome.
Real nice
He still
butt.
got it.
Okay, we should probably get to the interview.
Yeah.
Jonah Keri. So earlier this week, I chatted with baseball writer and podcaster Jonah Keri. You may know him from CBS Sports. He's got a podcast on Nerdist and also I'm missing one.
Sports Illustrated.
Sports Illustrated.
Yeah.
He does a lot, and we do talk about that. We talked about his time at Grantland. We talked about his podcast. We talked about trade deadline stuff. It's pretty long because Jonah and I both talk a lot. We've got those brains that sort of go wherever they want to. But he's so smart and such an interesting guy that we left in most of it because I think it's really interesting stuff. It's just sort of all over the place. Also, if you're one of those people that wants to just get to what they need, Dave, producer Dave here, usually takes a lot of time and time codes every episode we do. So on Twitter, I usually tweet it. Garbage Time tweets it out, and I think on SoundCloud we list the time codes. So if you need to get where you're going, you can always check out the time codes because Dave puts a lot of time into that. So anyway, without further ado, we love Jonah Keri. It was fantastic. So enjoy. Here it is, Jonah Keri. Jonah Keri, CBS Sports, Sports Illustrated, and Nerdist. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me, Katie Nolan. However, I have a bone to pick with you right off the top.
Oh, my God. Let me hear it.
All right. So there are certain guests that I've been trying to get on my own podcast, which is, as you said, on the Nerdist Network, and I've been very happy with it. I've had Shaquille O'Neal. I've had Chris Hardwick. I've had cool people.
Brag more.
Yes. Well, listen, let me tell you something. You can retweet your own praise on Twitter. You can brag. The term humble, R.I.P. Harris Whittle's a lovely human from what I hear, but brag all you want. No humility, no anything like that, because if you don't brag for you, nobody else is going to brag for you.
Get to the point.
That's number one. So I'll get to the point. So I went to a breakfast because apparently there's a gentleman who lives in Los Angeles and he has a big breakfast. It's like a big to-do of intellectuals or whatever, and you kind of have to pay your respects to this guy if you want to get on his good side. So I go. This is like a few months ago. Everybody's talking about politics and Trump. This is like it's a little bit of baseball, very interesting. And I hit it off with this guy. And I said, hey, guy, I would like you to be on my podcast. And he said, no problem. Just get together with my rep. I did. Reps away, playing phone tag, playing whatever tag, email tag. This goes on for at least 6 weeks. And I try not to chase. I try not to sound desperate. So I'm like, fine, I guess I'm not going to get this person. And then Larry King appears on your motherfucking podcast. And it was, or on your show. And it was really, really good, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
So the only thing that made me feel better about it was you did a really good job with Larry King. So at least he got represented by, I feel like we're vaguely in the same sphere of vaguely sort of nice people who try hard.
I will take that as a compliment. Thank you.
Well, I'm being self-deprecating, but
if you're putting me in your sphere, I appreciate that.
And vice versa. So anyway, that was the deal.
Wow. So you're upset about Larry King.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say you hit it off with him at this breakfast,
not that well.
Yeah, I was gonna say because I hit it off with him in that interview. Like I had to tell him to leave. He was gonna. Stay. We were gonna date.
He was. I mean, he's a talker. When we had that breakfast, we must have talked for like 2 hours, and I kind of stayed after a little bit. And he's like, I'm interested in politics. I mean, aside from baseball, there's just a lot of the things that he's interested in. So am I. Right. So it was just a great chat, and I find it to be a fascinating person. Period.
Yeah. I mean, we started filming with him. I don't know if we've told this story anywhere, but when we filmed with him, it was to do it in a regular show, like a 2-minute, 3-minute, 5-minute segment tops. And once he started talking, we were like, this is too much stuff. Like we can't not use all of it. And so we just gave him a whole show.
That's great. Well, you could put stuff. Could you put stuff online? Like I know Simmons does that with his show, right? Where he'll take snippets and do online or whatever.
There's like a whole big if we put an hour of footage online, it's like a bit of doing so much work for a show that then it doesn't even see the light of day. So just to make us feel better, we just called it in for the show that week and used that instead.
Well, CBS at this point, there's a lot of things I'm doing for them. I write for them, whatever. I do this. And then now I'm doing this thing every Thursday night, which we're running as if it's a live show, but they're just test shows right now. And they kind of want me to have a talking extemporaneously and having fun with sports and social media for 20 minutes show. And I'm like, you mean like Katie Nolan? And they're like, well, not exactly, but
with
a
boobs.
little bit like that. Less. I mean, I don't think I have gynecomastia. I'm relatively not like that, but yeah, no, they're talking about it. I just said, well, that's a good model to shoot for, so whatever. But I mean, it's a little bit more hardcore baseball and pretty baseball focused. But
we're pretty hardcore baseball, Jonah.
I mean,
just
sure, but it's just an interesting thing that you could just kind of, starting as an online show and then kind of see how it goes. And I think that's their intention as well. So we'll see. I haven't really announced that widely, I guess, but it's in the midst of
breaking news.
Yes, I'm excited.
Well, so do you ever not work? Because you work for every company and you do a billion things and you tweet like all the time.
Dude,
and somehow you get to watch the sport that is the longest of all of them. I don't understand do you have extra time in your day that we all don't get, us plebeians?
I also have 6-year-old twins.
Oh my God, are you out of your mind?
I have, how do you say, endless energy.
I was going to say Adderall prescription. I didn't know.
I drink coffee like once a year. I don't drink soda. I don't, none of that.
You're one of those. I'm nightshades. Do you eat nightshades?
I don't. It's just I'm a weird Canadian and I have all that. I basically just, so Grantland ends and I basically decide, at first I was like, I don't even know if I'm going to be a sports writer anymore. I had like this big, whatever, crisis of confidence. Like, am I helping the planet enough? I used to not be a sports writer, and I don't know if I helped the planet then, but I really thought about doing other stuff. And so it's considered a book idea, which I might still do actually, which has nothing to do with sports and is pretty ambitious, I would say, and just kind of thought about things. And then eventually CBS and other places offered me like pretty good money. And I said, all right. So I just started like donating to mostly my money, a little bit of time to Planned Parenthood. That's how I decided that's what I ended up doing with basically my trying to help the planet a little bit stuff, which is not enough because it's not my full-time job, but it's like, okay, at least I feel a little better, because you can feel that this thing is frivolous if you get inside your own head. It's like, yeah, we're doing highlights of, whatever, Joey Votto, popping the guy's shirt which was funny and amazing, but it's like, you're pretty smart, and there's a lot of things that you could be doing, and you're doing a show and you're very successful at it. But I don't know, does that ever get to you? It's like, what if I was curing cancer or doing whatever the hell, something different? I feel that way anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I have a friend who works in, she's a licensed dance therapist, and she works at like a hospital and has to work with people who are going through things and uses like dance and movement to help them. And she comes home from work and will call me and be like, I had a tough day today. Some guy like attacked me at work. And I'm like, I had a tough day. I didn't get my script done in time. And then I'm like, God, I'm such an asshole that I ever complain about my life when I get to talk about sports for a living.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get what you're saying. So you're saying that's why you constantly are working and doing things all the time.
So anyway, this all happens, and I didn't expect to necessarily. I thought that I would do multiple jobs because I didn't want to be locked into one job. Because if you're locked into one job, whatever corporation employs you will take advantage of you. I've learned that in my old age. I'm not, except for Fox, which I'm sure treats you brilliantly. Much love to Fox, but yeah. So there was a little bit of that, and I was able to call my own shot. CBS and SI are rivals, sort of. Yeah. But I just said, listen, I'm going to do both, and it's in my contract that I could do whatever. I'll have to ask for permission. I ended up, I get some weird assignments. I will tell you one interesting assignment. Actually, you know what? This is a story. I like to tell stories. I tell a lot of stories. Okay, so I'm friends with these guys, Ben Lindbergh and Sam Miller. They're also like statistically oriented baseball writers. They're baseball prospectus. Lindbergh went to Grantland, now works for the Ringer. A great dude, like awesome, up and comer. He's terrific. And so they wrote a book. They wrote a book about an independent baseball team called the Sonoma Stompers. The premise was they would take stats ideas and run a professional baseball team. They were just given carte blanche, managed to do whatever, like all of it. It was really cool. Great book, New York Times bestseller, whatever. So everybody kind of knows each other in this nerd baseball sphere. So the people who run the team reach out to me one day and they say, hey, we want you to do this assignment. For some background, Rick Riley a few weeks ago tweeted this thing. He said that Kevin Durant going to the Golden State Warriors is the third boob for Kate Upton, which at a minimum is like just not funny. No. And you could argue that it's sexist and pretty lousy.
And also, like, third boob, who says that's bad?
Total Recall,
Some
amazing.
People love that shit. Exactly.
Fine. And I don't judge you. Whatever you're into, that's fine. It's not for me to say.
Exactly.
Fine. So Rick Riley separately had pitched the Sonoma Stompers on going to visit them because they have these two women who play professional baseball for them. That's the first time two women have played professional baseball since the 1950s. This is a big fucking deal. Yeah. But they saw the Rick Riley tweet and my reply to Rick Riley, which was, quote, you used to be a really good sports writer.
Perfect.
And I don't go after people, Katie.
I know,
I'm
and that's
not
why
that
it's perfect.
person.
And because you didn't make a joke on top of his joke. You just said, like, wow, like I used to respect you, essentially. And everybody was like,
really
what?
Good. Yeah, I didn't. I'm not trying to score points. I added him. I guess I probably could have figured that people would see it, but anyway.
It was perfect.
Whatever. So the Sonoma Stompers were pitched by Rick Riley to go do an interview with these ladies. And then they said, no, screw this. We want Jonah to do it. So they invited me. I said, okay, but can I make it a podcast? They said, sure. So last week I flew to San Francisco and I interviewed them. Now to add a layer to this story, I got a separate, and this is going to tie into my many jobs. I tell a lot of stories.
That's okay. I like it.
Okay, so I get an email from this guy who I've never met in my life, and he's emailing me through my rinky-dink little blog, which I started a million years ago when people still had blogs, and it has like a little contact me thing, and on the bottom it says, blah, 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 I'm an editor for Ferrari magazine. And I'm like, well, that can't be a thing. It's not a thing. I look it up, turns out Ferrari magazine is a thing. He says, hey, there's this guy, he owns a lot of Ferraris, who wants you to do a story about him. I'm like, sir, I wear a lot of hats, but I don't know anything about cars. I drive a beat-up Pontiac. Like, I have a shitty car. I've always had shitty cars on purpose. I have no interest in cars. Right. They're a conduit from... If anything, I would just go Ubers all the time or cabs all the time, which I might eventually. Anyway, so he says, no, but it's a baseball player who has a bunch of Ferraris. He collects Ferraris. He's a well-known baseball player.
Way to bury the lead.
And I said, okay, well, I'm telling the story a little out of order for dramatic effect because I can do that.
Okay, my bad.
That's okay. I'm a storyteller. So I said, all right, well, okay, tell me how much it pays, this much. I'm like, oh, it's not bad. What's the work required? You got to fly to this place for a day. I'm like, I could probably do that. And they said, oh, and the guy also bought his wife a really cool Ferrari. She custom made it. She did a really good job designing it, and you should go. So last week, I went to San Francisco on the Tuesday to interview these two women who basically were rejected because of the Rick Riley, Kate Upton thing. And on Wednesday, I went to Detroit, Michigan to interview Justin Verlander and his fiance, Kate Upton, about their Ferraris.
Wow.
What kind of confluence events is that? That was crazy. So that was a lot of fun. That's what I did last week.
Insane.
I know. I was literally, and the Ferraris were very beautiful. They did not give me a Ferrari to drive. I didn't get to do that, but it was fun. It was cool. And they were very nice. Both of them were very nice.
Let's go back because I know you're a storyteller, so I feel like we're going to have to be doing this the whole time. But I like it.
Cool.
Because you casually dropped Grantland, which,
yes.
do you say Grantland or Grantland? Because I'm a Grantland.
I think I'm Grant. So when you had Rem on, I think you had this debate too. And Rem is the best, by the way. Him. And really talented and is like a superstar and is only going to be a bigger superstar. I remember he said Grantland, and that made me think about it because I'm not conscious of how I pronounce things. Also, I'm Canadian, so I say weird things sometimes. You sure do. Thanks. And I think I said Grantland, so I'm pretty sure that's it.
You're on the right side of this debate.
I guess.
I like it. So you were a lead baseball writer there from 2011 to 2015. How do you get into baseball writing? What were you doing before? How'd you get to Grantland?
So I graduated from college in 1997, and in those days, it was difficult to get a full-time job. Like, you could become a sports writer. I mean, there were sports writers then, but I worked for a unionized paper in Montreal at the time, and then I subsequently moved to the States, and then I took a downgrade. I was basically working for a community newspaper, making, I think it was $18K a year, covering city council meetings until 2:30 in the morning in Reston, Virginia. That was fun. And whatever, I liked the job. But it was just difficult to break into the business unless you wanted to wait for the local newspaper columns to die, because the internet was very new and there weren't that people that were doing what I wanted to do, which was not to be a beat writer and eat hot dogs and be on the road in Milwaukee. Nothing wrong with Milwaukee, but just be on the road 12 days in a row. And by the time I already was married, very young. By the time I was starting my career, I got married right out of college. And so it became this thing where I said, okay, I want to sit on my high horse and be able to render opinions with backing, with analysis and whatever. And there were only two people that were doing anything close to the kind of writing that I wanted to do, which is not necessarily have to defer and sit and cover high school field hockey or work in the sticks, but basically write on the internet about cool stuff. One was Rob Nyer. Rob Nyer became a very well-known baseball writer, and he's now one of my best friends. And the other guy was Bill Simmons. And Bill Simmons eventually became my boss. And they just had the formula where they said they can get compensated, and they were providing interesting and entertaining opinions with facts, but they didn't have to I was too arrogant to basically pay my dues. I didn't want to do that. So nobody offered me anything, so I just started doing other stuff. So when I started my career in D.C. I married American, moved to D.C., lived there for 2 years.
Oh, must be nice. You just came right over to America and just started enjoying all of the lovely things we had to offer.
It's a marriage of convenience that will be 19 years at the end of this month.
Oh, my God.
I know.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. So yeah,
moved to DC. Yep.
Moved to DC. It was great. Did that for a couple years, and then everything has been for her career. She's a child psychologist, so you have to get your master's and your PhD and your blah, blah, blah. And so it became, hey, we're going to move to either Toledo, Ohio, or LA. I said, can we choose LA? Is that okay? Do you mind? And she said, yeah, that's fine. We don't have to move to Toledo. I said, all right. So she was going to SC, and I basically applied to a bunch of jobs. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to be a sports business writer. You wanted to be
Darren Ravell.
No, this was pre-Darren Rovell. Darren Rovell did not exist in 1999.
Darren Rovell
always
existed. That's
but I wanted to be nice guy, maybe funny guy, chill guy.
Yeah.
Sports business guy, like Darren Rovell, but cool, basically. And I don't go after people, but I don't care for Darren Rovell. Anyway, so
I love him personally.
Do you?
No.
I went after Kurt Schilling on my own podcast, and then I edited it out. It was a podcast that I did with Wyshynski and Lozo, and they were yelling at me when I edited it out. Anyway, so I was going to do this, and I applied to 6 different newspapers, and all of them said that's not a thing. It doesn't exist. It was like the Wall Street Journal, like some big LA Times, some big papers. They said that's not a thing. There's no sports business. I said I know it's going to be huge. There's going to be, shoe contracts and thoughtful things about the ethics of stadium financing and all this cool stuff. And I have like a mind for business and sports.
You wrote that book was like a businessy sports book.
It totally was. And anyway, they basically said it wasn't a thing. So I ended up going to work for a place called Investors Business Daily, which is a very hardcore stock market newspaper, which, people need to make money in the stock market. That's fine. Except that the other thing about this place is that it is an extreme right-wing editorial page. Like, even if you are a Republican, it's still far out there for that. It's like maybe right of Trump. It's God. The editorial page was like God and country and like morals, and people are just trying to make money in the stock market. Like, whether you're some person starting out, you have $500 to invest, or you're rich, whatever. It was a weird place. I worked there for a long time, but the people were nice, and it was a cool job.
What were you writing there at that point?
I was writing the flagship stock market column for the second biggest financial newspaper in the country at age 25.
You have the weirdest interests.
But it wasn't my interest. Like,
you have the interest of like a 79-year-old man since you were like 23.
It's probably true, except that when I go to a cocktail party and they're like, "Hey, what do you want to talk about?" I got the stock thing locked up, but I got the sports thing locked up.
That's true.
I never had any women interested in talking to me. Anyway, so I did that for a long time, and separately, the internet started coming up. There started being opportunities to write about sports. I'm more of a basketball fan than I am a baseball fan, but the basketball analytics thing there was no Zach Lowe in like 2002, so baseball became the natural thing. I wrote for a place called Baseball Prospectus for a while. Baseball Prospectus led to some side work for ESPN.com, still writing full-time for the other place. Eventually the sports thing catches up to the other thing, and the thing that probably put it over the top was the book that you mentioned, which was called The Extra 2%, which is a little bit like Moneyball, sort of, except it's probably even a little bit more businessy, and like literally
so much better.
Oh, well, thanks. Moneyball was pretty good. It did well. It did well, whatever. But I remember distinctly going to, as Simmons said, Dorkapalooza in 2011. There was this big table there. There's like a little room for the speakers. And so Simmons is sitting at the head of the table. I've met him like once or twice, I think. And he's sitting with like 20 people gathered around, like, "Oh, we want to hear from the grand poobah. Like, tell me all about your stuff." And so I just take a seat at the other side of the table with this older gentleman who looks exactly like Mark Twain. And we start talking about baseball or whatever. And he's just a very nice fellow. And Simmons stops his conversation and says, "Dad, that's the guy I told you about who wrote that really good book. You should talk." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm probably going to get a job now." And then I did get a job at Grantland. So that was cool.
So just become friends with Bill's dad. That's like the best way to get in.
I'm going to say like 5% my body of work and 95% just like talking about the 1972 Expos with a man in his 60s.
Like I said, you have the interests of a 79-year-old man.
Probably true.
So, of course, everybody, when they talk about Grantland, what they want to talk about is how it ended.
Yep.
Which I don't know how much you want to talk about it or if you've talked it to death, but I'm just curious to know, like, how did you find out? Like, what was that day like? Was it doomsday? Was it like, oh my God, what are we all going to do now? Or did you kind of have it figured out?
So coincidentally, my contract with ESPN, because ESPN was the parent company, of course, at Grantland, was up on October 31st of last year. And by October, we're already getting the sense that things are going to happen. I was interviewing for jobs. I went to Gawker. I was like, maybe I'll be a political writer. I went to which I guess Gawker Media, I love the people at Gawker Media, but I don't know how stable that would have been.
You're so good at not bashing people. It's like really cool to watch you do it. Like, fuck that place, fuck that shit.
Not at all. In fact, Greg Howard and Tim Marchman, some of these people, current and present.
Yes.
Craig's in the past. Will Leach is awesome. Like, they're great people. My God, Emma Carmichael's really cool. The list goes on and on. So, no, I don't think I have any enemies, although I don't like Schilling. But anyway, So I applied all these jobs, and I still don't know what's going to happen. And then it gets toward the end, and we kind of know that something's up. And they basically tell us there's going to be a conference call. We're like, this is it. And then they announce it. They tell us on a conference call, and they announce it to Twitter at the exact same time, which was kind of not great.
Weird.
It was a little weird. So the weird thing about it with me was it happens, and then I just have my computer open. I often use Twitter on the web as opposed to my phone because I just work from home a lot. And so I had the replies open, which sometimes I do instead of having main Twitter. And right as they announced it, my kids had a Halloween pageant. They're in kindergarten. They're adorable. So they're like wearing, I think my son was dressed as like Babar. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go see. Yeah, my daughter was like, I don't even remember, like a firefighter or something. It was great. So I leave my computer open. I go for 2 hours and I do whatever normal dad stuff. And I come back And I have like a decent sized Twitter following, but not huge. And I come back and there were 3,150 mentions on my computer.
Oh my God.
And some of them were like directly to me, but a lot of them were just like, and hey, I really enjoyed reading, Louisa Thomas and Stephen Hayden and Rambert and Barnwell and Jonah, whatever, a mix. And it was the nicest. It was like you were at your own funeral. And I started crying. I was just like, fuck, this is, but in the best possible way. I was just like, oh, this is all worth it. Like we reached people, and I thought I was doing good work before that. And I think so did other people, but there was something elemental about that site that really hit with people. It could be older people. A lot of like kids in college are just like, hell yeah, I want to be a writer now. Or I want to be a stock market guy, but at least this gets me through my horrible education on my way to being whatever it was. And men, women, whatever, it didn't matter. And it was very gratifying because you don't necessarily see that all the time. And I know that on your show, you've had conversations about social media. You go back and forth on the goods and the bads. I really try hard to interact with people only in a positive way, even if they come at me or snark. I mean, if they really go over the top, I'll mute them. But otherwise, if they insult me or they say it's like constructive criticism, I'll kind of come back and I'll say like, good point, and it disarms them. Like I don't do conflict at all, and so I only get good things back. Well, yeah, but I mean, and we're not going to get into this because it's the most overwrought conversation of all time. But you are a woman in sports media.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I could tell you what it's like someday if you want. I'll just probably have a 4-hour conversation with you about it. No, it sounds like the first time you had a birthday on Facebook. Remember that feeling when you were like, wow, so many people just wished me happy birthday. I feel really loved.
It was
that
super
times
nice.
A million.
Times a million because it's your work, it's your heart and soul. It's both Barnwell and I had I guess Barnwell was a Tuesday column and me was a Monday column. Or he might have been a Monday column too, but we would stay up all night to do that column. Like me was Sunday night, I think him it might have been Monday night. So we'd file at 7:30 in the morning, and that would be I wrote something called The 30, and his was his big weekly column. And 7:30 in the morning, my kids are like away. Like I don't see anybody. I'm like dismissing my wife, and it's hard. But I'm like, okay, at the end of the day, like people care. They read it. Like that's cool. I tried hard and I succeeded, and that's great. So I felt really good about it, and I didn't end up coming out of it with any negative implications. ESPN also, for no reason, gave me a 2-month extension. Just like go find. They weren't going to keep. They're just like, if you want to keep a job, it wasn't even severance because I was still employed by ESPN, but I did like 3 articles for them in 2 months, and then I found jobs, and that was the end of it. So listen, even like John Skip or whatever, I have no ill will toward anybody. I didn't think that they handled it well strategically. I didn't think they handled it well personally with not just Bill, but some other people. But, I can't say that they wronged me, really. Like, they did right by me, and I found a job, and I was fine with it.
What do you think about The Ringer? Do you read that now?
I do read it. And I think a lot of people that didn't have as high a profile necessarily, those are the people that I am happiest for. Like, Mallory Rubin was my editor for a while, and she's, like, the best editor in America, probably, and she's now she's achieved a little bit of notoriety because she's on that After the Throne show on HBO with Greenwald, Chris, and those guys, and Jason Concepcion is great. But she's the editors work behind the scenes, and I think that's a little bit of a lost art. I think you can find good writers in the world, but to find a good editor requires, number one, that the person be as smart and conversant in multiple topics and all that as a writer does, and number two, that they fundamentally don't have the bastard ego that I have, that I want to see, hey, here's my name, how many retweets did I get? They don't have that, and that's really something. And so somebody like Mallory, Ryan O'Hanlon was another editor that I had. There's a lot of people who went over there who didn't have the same high profile that I'm over the moon delighted for, because they found another really good job with a lot of the same people as before. And actually, a lot of people went to MTV News too. They're two kind of factions. But that's Holly Anderson, and that's Papademos and Mark Lasanti and a bunch of other people I really like as well. So, like, God bless. And I feel it's like, I'm not even religious. I don't know why I said God bless. I do it like semi-ironically. But anyway, I just, like, everybody who finds a job or a book, and there's a lot of book deals, like, I'm just like, I'm so happy for everybody. I really feel nothing but good feelings toward everybody. I hope that each and every person at Grantland makes $1 billion and does whatever it is that their greatest ambition is, and whatever, because they were really great. That was it was good content, but they were such good people to work with. That's what made it a good place for us to be able to produce and not feel bitter about filing stories at 7:30 in the morning.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool because now you have this network of people that have dispersed into all these other spots that like are your friends and your connections, and you guys can, like, I don't think there's a thing in your contract when it ended that was like, can't be friends with them anymore. So you now have this like huge network of people that you love and love very much. You love everybody very much, Jonah.
I think I do.
So on your podcast, on Nerdist Network. How does that work? So did you like because that's like a huge network, but I didn't know before you, and I could just be wrong and misinformed, that they had any sports stuff.
I went in November of last year, soon after the Grantland thing ended. One of the things that I'd pitched was Nerdist Sports. I pitched it to Chris Hardwick, who started Nerdist, and I said, let's build like a unit, like a division, a vertical or whatever, where it's all sports. It would start with my podcast. We built a podcast network. We would put like web content like into the regular Nerdist.com mix and all that stuff. And Chris said, yeah, fuck it, let's do it. That was it. Like I had one, I don't even remember, coffee phone call, and that was the end of the conversation. It was just done.
Wow.
So it was great. And it's ironically, I guess, not every podcast that I've done has been sports. Like I had Will Leach on, but we talked exclusively about politics. I had a woman named Erin Carmona on who wrote a biography of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who was literally the coolest person in America. And that's like one of the favorite books I've ever read. I just wanted to talk about that for 45 minutes. So it just became, I could do whatever, but under the guise of sports. And then I recruited Wyshynski and Lozo, who you know and are awesome.
I love
them. And their podcast is so funny and so good. And, the hope is eventually, like, I want to get a basketball podcast and a football podcast or whatever. We started running some web content on Nerdist.com as well. And we're just kind of going along and seeing how it goes. But it was just, Chris Hardwick is a big believer in let's just build a thing. And I feel like we have pretty similar sensibilities. And so that's what I wanted to do. That's what he wanted to do. And he said, let's go for it. And I'd guested on his podcast twice. And he's... I mean, whatever. I go back and forth between wanting to amplify praise and being painfully not like that at all. It's like, anyway.
Me too. You have to oscillate between the both in order to be successful in the jobs that we do. That's how it has to be. You can't take yourself so seriously and think you're the best, or else you'll become like I'll say it because you can't, like Rick Riley. Then you start to buy into your own hype and you get a little weird, and then you kind of lose it. And you start quoting yourself because that was the last time people liked you. So you plagiarize your own work and you try to put it back out there like no one will notice. But you also can't think that you're the worst, or else you'll never get yourself advanced in the... So we have to do a little dance between the both of them.
I think that's right. I think that's my normal personality too. I think that it just is all kind of genuine. Anyway, so the Nerdist thing is really cool. They're very supportive. You're like not laughing out loud. Laugh is so delightful. I can see it because we're on a screen, but it's great. Anyway, so that's what we've been doing. It started with once a week. My podcast has gone to twice a week, and it just affords a lot of opportunities. And the thing that I've done, I know that you and I and your producers, we talked about me coming in person. We couldn't make it happen. We're doing it by Skype. Mm-hmm. But I try to do, if I can, I think I've done every podcast except two, which were Skype. I've been in person. So I went to Bill Walton's house.
Oh, wow.
And then which was amazing. Like, it's a hip house that he bought 37 years ago. It's exactly what you think Bill Walton's house is. And then afterwards, he makes me stay at lunch, and then we're talking about all kinds, like an hour and a half. It was fantastic. For Shaq, I flew to Atlanta, like the Turner PR guy, like he liked me, I like him. And he said, what can we do for you? I said, give me Shaq. He said, all right, fly to Atlanta. I said, flying to Atlanta. And that's on my own dime because I'm not paid a salary by Nerdist, and you just collect ad revenue. You know how that goes. And so sometimes there's no profit to me made from a couple nights in a hotel and a flight, but I'm like, fuck, it's Shaq. Like, of course I'm going to do it. Yeah. And I'm loving it. It's like really exciting. And I think that fundamentally my defining characteristic is I'm super intellectually curious. That's the reason that stock market, I don't know anything about the stock market, but fine. Ferraris, okay, like whatever it is. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I'm just like, gimme. I want to know. Like I'm the classic definition of a nerd in that way. And so it makes it so that people listen to it. And I've had people say, oh, why aren't you doing a baseball podcast anymore? Because Dave Jacoby, when he ran the podcast network at Grantland, said, who's another great guy, by the way, said, hey, just make it all baseball. And now I'm like, I can do whatever the fuck I want. So this is what I'm going to do. And I really like basketball, and I really like everything. Lots of stuff.
Well, you love literally everything, I think. You love literally everything.
Everything and everybody.
It's amazing, and it's infectious, and I like it. Who would you say is your favorite guest you've had so far, and who is your dream guest, like the person you really want to, other than me, because that'd be awkward because I'm like right here, but like if you had to pick another person that you would die to have in your podcast, plus then also your favorite.
So I was ready to say you, but now I have to think about it. So I've mentioned Shaq and Walton or whatever, but I had Keith Olbermann on, and Keith subsequently made the rounds. Like, he went on Bill's, he went on a couple others, but I think I might have just asked him first, and I knew him a little bit before I don't even remember. Well, I used to be on a show, that's why. So I have a hard time with like tracking relationships. So I just asked him, and he said, sure. So he's in New York. He comes to the studio. We talked for 2.5 hours.
Am I right that was one of your first ones? Because I remember listening to
Second.
Yeah.
Second overall.
I listened to that.
Thank you for listening.
Of course.
And I had Hardwick on first because it's Hardwick's network, and that was like a good real talk. And he was an alcoholic. He talked all about that. Like sometimes we get into this heavy stuff. And so Olbermann, gosh, we talked about everything, and he tells great. Like he told the story of like breaking the Wayne Gretzky trade, and then after we finished, we just like started walking around New York together talking about dogs. I'm a big, huge love dogs. Like I know more about dogs than I do about baseball. I watch dog shows unironically. If you dog walking down the street, I will tell you what breed it is, and I don't mean like a golden retriever. I mean like a whatever Leon burger. Like I'm on it. I'm on all that.
And Keith
stuff.
loves dogs too.
Loves dogs,
Yeah.
and is a big humanitarian, dogatarian. Just like that. That's probably
puppetarian. I think puppetarian.
Puppetarian's good. So that was really good. And then one that happened very soon after the Olbermann was with a guy named Dan Herron, who pitched in the major leagues for many years and was very good. And he comes to the studio. He's recently retired. And there's a thing about athletes when they're, on the job, they're a little, except for like Mina Kimes just wrote an article today about Marcellus and Michael Bennett, which is like
fantastic.
She's amazing, and I hope to have her on the podcast. I actually tried to recruit her to be on my podcast network, but there's ESPN restrictions or whatever. She's a cool person and great in every way. Anyway, they're like, they don't give a fuck. They're just saying whatever they want over and over, which was great. But Herron said, admittedly, that during his career he would give dry interviews, but he's clearly smart, and he had just retired, so he comes on my thing and he starts talking. He's not really tossing bombs at people, but we're having a good chat. And at the end of every podcast, I'm like, give me like a little thing, a Dan Herronism, like something that's really you. And for 20 minutes, he talked about becoming an atheist. I'm like, whoa, this is so cool. And it was great. So we just ended up, like he was pitching for the Washington Nationals 4 years ago or something. And he sucked. And he'd been a good pitcher his whole career. He'd lost velocity. He had back injuries. He was far away from home. He'd lived in Southern California his whole life. Went to Pepperdine. His family was there. Suddenly he's in D.C. Nobody's there. He's pitching badly. Fans don't like him. And he's just like, people sometimes will, I guess, look for faith in that situation. He's like, fuck this. What did God ever do for me? Like, kind of said that, but not in like a dismissive way. Like he wasn't trying to imply that if you are religious, you're bad. And then he subsequently told the story of two of his former teammates, Clayton Kershaw and AJ Ellis. I just interviewed AJ for a podcast, which will come out the way. And I asked him the flip side of that, which is how do you mix faith in baseball? And he gave me like a real answer, not a thank God I scored a touchdown kind of answer. Anyway, so Herron talks about all this stuff, and wow, it was really good. And I think the mark of a good podcast is you just have to get out of the way sometimes. Sometimes your guest is just, well, for me personally, the guest is always more interesting than I am. So I'm like, tell me what you got, Shaq. Like, they're not here for me. Give me your stuff. And so, I try really hard to do that. And Herron just talked, and I let him go, and it was great. And I've done, I don't know if have you done a live podcast yet?
No, but I want
to.
They're
fun. They're fun, and I think I feel like you probably have a pretty committed audience, and I've done a couple now, and they're super fun. I did one with a guy named Spaceman Bill Lee, who used to pitch in the 70s and 80s, and it's like this iconoclast. He was on the cover of High Times magazine while he was an active Major League Baseball player, which is amazing. And so I literally would ask him a question, and then the next hour, it was right at the Wilbur Theater in Boston. For the next hour, he talked, and he told people were dying, rolling in the aisles, and I'm like, they don't need me here. Like you're here for the guest. And so that's all I try to do is just like not step on them, not, sometimes I have something to add that's specific to their story, but otherwise it's just like, let them go and do their thing.
So dream guest, did you answer that question?
Oh yeah. So dream guest, Larry King. No.
I'll hook it up. Just kidding.
I don't know that it would be an athlete. I think I would want it to be, like Ruth Bader Ginsburg would be really cool. I'd want it to be somebody that like nobody could ever dream of getting them on. Like she's not going to do any other podcasts. You know what I mean? But maybe she would do mine and we would talk about totally different kind of stuff. That would be the thing. Trying to think who else. You know what? I think I'd like to have Tom York from Radiohead.
Ooh.
Because I just saw Radiohead 2 nights ago in Montreal, by the way. And like the fourth time I've seen them. They played Creep, which they don't usually do. They ended with Creep. I have it like on my Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter is like the 15 seconds of like so special, so fucking special. And then there's the guitar, and then it lights up. Johnny Greenwood is playing. I'm like, rah! And the thing about Radiohead is they've been around long enough that they could be dad rock, but they're not. Like Wilco's been around a lot, and the Wilco is kind of dad rock at this point. Radiohead's not. Like they're current. I don't know how they do that. Anyway, so and Tom is so weird, and he doesn't really give interviews. Like that could be really good.
All right, guys, back to Jonah in a minute. But first, I want to tell you about ZipRecruiter. Are you hiring? Do you know where to post your job to find the best candidates? Posting your job in one place isn't enough to find quality candidates. If you want to find the perfect hire, you need to post your job on all the top job sites, and now you can. With ZipRecruiter.com, you can post your job to 100 plus job sites, including social media networks like Facebook and Twitter, all with one single click. Find candidates in any city or industry nationwide. Just post once and watch your qualified candidates roll into ZipRecruiter's easy-to-use interface. No juggling emails or calls to your office. Quickly screen candidates, rate them, and hire the right person fast. Find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by over 800,000 businesses. And right now, my listeners can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free by going to ZipRecruiter.com/Katie. That's ZipRecruiter.com/KATIE. One more time, to try it for free, go to ZipRecruiter.com/KATIE. And good luck. I hope you find some really cool people that are going to be really good at your job. And if Dave and I didn't have jobs, we'd probably come work for you. But we can't because we're busy. And you should use ZipRecruiter.com/KATIE. Okay, back to Jonah. The baseball trade deadline was Monday, so I imagine you've had a busy week. But then again, you have a busy week every week, so you have 95 jobs.
Yes.
I will admit completely openly that this is around the time, maybe like a couple weeks back is when I started like, okay, baseball, I'm ready for you now.
There's no more sports now.
Yeah, and also just there's like so many games, and I like to get really, really invested and take everything like really, like hyper-focused on a sport. And if I'm super invested in baseball months ago, I'm going to lose years off my life because you go up and down with every loss and you're checking the scoreboard and talking like playoff pictures and like way too soon. So anyway, I'm ready now. That's why you're here.
Yes.
To sort of get me caught up. Let's talk trade deadline. I want to start selfishly with my Red Sox.
Yep.
They didn't make any major moves. They had a nasty loss last night, which we can just go ahead and not talk about. How should I feel about them for the rest of the way?
So Dave Dombrowski had done a lot of and Mike Hazen had done a lot of the heavy lifting beforehand, where in the offseason, Dombrowski, it's a weird thing about the power, that's a whole other discussion. The power dynamics of modern front offices is different because now it's like the team president who's acknowledged as kind of the general manager. It's that way in LA too, like Andrew Friedman is that guy, but there's a guy named Farhan Zaidi who's brilliant and is the general manager, but it's just not strictly speaking. Same thing in Chicago, Theo Epstein and Jed Hoyer. Anyway, so Dombrowski had 4 targets. He wanted a lights out closer, a top of the rotation starter, a fourth outfielder who smokes left-handed pitching, and a really good setup man. And even had specific guys in mind, and he literally got all 4 guys, which was Kimbrel, Price, Carson Smith, and Chris Young. Price sucks. Kimbrel's hurt. Young is hurt. Smith is hurt. Not so great, but that's what he tried to do. And by the way, at the time, none of us thought those were crappy moves. They just haven't run. Well, any move for a big pitcher doesn't usually work out. But anyway, so he tried to do that in advance. So he comes in, he says, okay, we've got some of those spots filled. He goes and gets Drew Pomerantz, which is already like a week or two ago after the All-Star game, and does some minor moves here or there. So he felt that he'd already filled the spots. It's a good team. Like it's a good team. And last week I wrote a piece about the Blue Jays, who are rivals of the Red Sox. And what I wrote about the Jays was they didn't do anything splashy. Last year they got Price and Tulowitzki at the deadline. This year they got like Melvin Upton more or less by throwing in a couple bucks. They got like minor players like Mike Bolsinger and Scott Feldman, and like not only you, but like your hardcore baseball friends don't even know who these people are, but they're trying to make these incremental deals. And I think there's something to that in baseball because baseball's such a different sport than other sports. I think there's a reason that Mike Trout is not nearly as popular as LeBron. It's because Mike Trout can't be dribbling around the perimeter with 24 seconds left in the game, deciding he's either going to dunk in someone's face or not, and that's the game. Trout might not bat within 2 innings of when the moment of the game is decided. You know what I mean?
That's a good point. So
it really, and it could come down to your 7th inning setup man or like your backup pinch hitter or whatever, and teams recognize this. And so the responsibility of it gets diffused throughout the whole roster, and it means you have to be really on point. Like if the Cavs had a really shitty 8th man, they're probably still winning. It's good to have a good bench, but they're probably still winning the title. Whoever, the Red Sox, whatever, cannot do that without like not only a good team with stars, but they have to have just depth and balance. That's super duper important. So I thought the Red Sox did a good job of that leading up to the deadline, and the Jays did it more or less at the deadline. A team like Texas made like 2 major moves. They got a guy named Jonathan Lucroy. They got Carlos Beltran. These are big name guys, whatever. But I think you can do almost as much getting 6 guys who are okay filling the spot of a guy who's just bad.
Yeah, and baseball's like good at the not flashiness of it, whereas other sports are, like you said, more like star, star, star. This is, more about the filling out the roster. Would you say that the Rangers are the winners of the trade deadline?
I mean, probably. I just wrote a whole piece about them, which was Wednesday, so it was yesterday. But it just basically talked about what they did and how they went about it. But I didn't. That's the other thing about my industry. There are so many good baseball writers now, younger than me, maybe hungrier. I don't know if they're hungrier than me because that's impossible.
No.
I'm insane. But anyway, I'm like, I work as if I'm convinced I'm going to get fired tomorrow. Like, that's how I always work. But I basically wrote it as talking about all the ways the Rangers had screwed up. That's how I led the story. I led the story by talking about a guy named Kyle Hendricks. Kyle Hendricks pitches for the Chicago Cubs. He might be the Cy Young winner this year. Now that Kershaw's hurt, he might be the best pitcher in the league. He's got a 2.22 ERA. He's awesome. He just pitched a shutout the night that I was writing this piece. The Rangers pissed him away for nothing. Like, it was for a forgettable guy. Like, it was just, they threw him overboard. They made a terrible trade for Prince Fielder, who's fat and terrible and might retire. They made all these bad moves. I'm sure Prince Fielder's a nice person. He's just bad at his job currently. I have to be careful about that. Yeah, thank you. But they've made so many bad moves that it's a testament that they're able to still have all these prospects that they can flip into Jonathan Lucroy or Beltran. I thought that was the angle, that they're so rich in developing talent. Again, different than any other sport, except I guess hockey has like deep minor leagues to some extent, but not football or basketball, right? Like, you can't trade 5 good running backs to get Tom Brady. It doesn't really work that way. Baseball, you could totally do that, and the Rangers do a really good job of that. Even when they make mistakes, they keep going back to the well.
I could listen to you talk about baseball like a lot. You make it really interesting and like an equation. You make it make sense of why they would do that and how that works. And who's like, what front office in the league you think is the best?
There are a lot now, because I think that baseball, because they jumped on the analytics train earlier than anybody else. Not to say that analytics are the end all be all. Like, scouts are super important and all that stuff. I just think that the idea of analytics is more about, how can we get more information? The information could be scouting based. It could be health based. It could be, we need to stop giving our players cheeseburgers after the game and give them quinoa. Like, all that stuff is important. And so I think that if you have a proclivity toward, I'm interested in the numbers, that can imply that you're interested in knowledge in general and getting better. Like, it's just making the effort. And so teams are far enough down the road that that's the case. Whereas hockey's a good example of this. You have a situation where there are teams that are really resistant to analytics, like really, really. And what tends to happen often in those teams is they're also not progressive in other ways. Like, maybe they haven't cracked the quinoa code or the injury prevention code. The quinoa code is the name of my next book.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I've decided it's like, I'm just going to have like the same logo as the Da Vinci Code, and people will be fooled, and they'll just be like, yes, Dan Brown is back. He's selling quinoa. I'm going for it. I'll just block out the byline of it. Anyway, that's probably fraud. But I think that the idea of the quest for knowledge is what teams are trying to do, and the teams that do it well happen to be analytically oriented, but they might out-scout you and do all kinds of stuff, and that's a lot of teams do that. The Cubs do it. The Dodgers do it. The Cleveland Indians do it really well. The Cleveland Indians are really good this year, and they have not been that good in the past because money still matters, and baseball doesn't have a salary cap, and revenue sharing doesn't equal it out completely, but they do a pretty good job of that too. There are like 10 front offices that I could name that are Red Sox included that are pretty darn good.
All right, I'll take that as an answer.
Yeah.
What teams do you think were the biggest losers of the trade deadline? Like, didn't do enough, or really needed to do something and didn't do a little?
I was a little surprised by Houston's inactivity, because Houston and Texas have been battling. Houston started the year terribly, and last year they made a whole bunch of moves at the deadline, and they didn't this year, which was a little odd. They're still a good club. They still might make the playoffs, but I just thought they had pieces to move and they had real holes to fill, and I was surprised by that. It's a funny thing, too, about baseball, and maybe about the way that I write about the sport. I think there's a temptation to just, especially if you're a national writer, just like, I'm going to write about the Yankees. That's going to get page views or whatever. Yeah. I almost painfully go out of the way to do other things. I can remember when I was at Grantland, this is like 2012, and the Brewers were in the midst of either a really bad stretch or a really good stretch. I couldn't even tell you. And I pitched my editor. I said, I want to write 6,000 words about the recent history of the Milwaukee Brewers. And credit to Mallory Rubin, she said, great, sounds awesome. And I wrote it. I have no idea. Nobody has ever told me in any of my jobs, not Grantland, not stock market, anywhere, how many hits I have. I have no idea. It might be just my dad. I don't know how many people read my articles. But I write that way. I'm just trying to write and just like, is it good? Is it interesting? That's it. And the end result was that people from Sheboygan, Wisconsin, or Greenway, Wisconsin, or whatever, wrote me and said, my God, nobody has ever written that many words about the Milwaukee Brewers. Thank you so much. And I was just like, great, amazing. I'm so happy that this person in Green Bay was cool with this article. So, when you're asking me a question, like I could say that it's the Dodgers or whatever, but it's like, no, like I really do think a lot about what Houston or Minnesota or whatever does because they have a 1/30th stake in the sport just like everybody else.
What is your reaction when you hear a story like that Chris Sale story? When you hear that a guy was chopping up jerseys and he's like suspended, like what? Because I know as a fan of just sports, I'm like, yes, this is everything I love. But are you like, just walk me through when you heard that story, what your reaction is.
So first of all, the funniest thing was that there's something comes out and it's Chris Sale has been suspended for something. And they didn't say what it was at first, which was really weird. And this is true. You can go look at my Twitter. I said, Chris Sale suspended for macrame. Like that's more or less what it was. And I did not know that. I just because macrame is a silly thing to say. There were a few reactions that I had. Number one was I was like, when you're in the media, you're looking at it from a meta level. So I'm like, I wonder what people are going to write. Like, I just thought it was goofy and funny or whatever. And Chris Sale is known to be like a little bit of a pain in the ass, but not like in a bad way. He doesn't, it's all the fucking domestic violence and all the other stuff. Like if you're hard-headed guy, like who gives a shit? That's nothing. Whatever. That doesn't bother me. But I'm waiting for the hot takes. Number one hot take was I'm waiting for people to say it's going to lower his trade value. The White Sox are going to trade it for nothing. Chris Sale might win the Cy Young this year and is making the media equivalent of $10,000 a year. Like he's just amazing and cheap and young. Like why would you ever do that? So that was number one. And number two, to be perfectly honest with you, I started thinking about what if Chris Sale was either black or Latin. That was the immediate thought that I had. Because if Yasiel Puig is legitimately, I think it's starting to come out that even though people came in really hard on Yasiel Puig, in fact, he's not the best guy. But I'm thinking of another example. Another Latino player or a person of color who was just not like a fine person, but whatever, got busted for this. Like it would have been totally different. I really do think that there is a double standard, and we can say that we're woke as an industry or whatever, but we are not there. Like we're just not, and we're not in society. We're not in sports or whatever. And not for nothing, but like I have Jessica Luther's book, and I think it's really good. And I think I really like it when you have Michelle Beadle on and you talk about real shit. Like that's good. And part of the reason, honestly, which I really thought about quitting sports, even though I'm a white dude and have the privilege that comes with it, is it's like I can feel a little dirty sometimes. And Chris Sale is such a minor thing. Like nothing really happened, but my mind goes to the other place sometimes. Like I want it to just be, this is goofy, this is silly, but I really do struggle with people, and there are still people in our industry who do this, who are just like, yeah, this is how this person's going to be treated as opposed to this person. And it makes me kind of sick. I'm not really a big fan of it.
Do you feel that more in baseball than in other sports? Or is that just the narrative that we spin, that baseball's old and outdated and antiquated?
Well, there is the whole bat flipping thing, and people get mad. Jose Bautista is of Latin descent, and people went after him and whatever. Although Bryce Harper, like, all white guys, like makes baseball fun again, which was tweaking Trump. Like it was good on like 10 levels. I'm a big Bryce Harper fan. Yeah, I think there's a little bit of that to some extent. I think the thing that gets me going about baseball is that people still think that steroids is the worst thing that could ever happen. I am looking at my mantle. I have like all kinds of books and balls and bobbleheads and Simpsons DVDs from 1997, like all kinds of stuff. And I have a Barry Bonds autographed bat. I loved Barry Bonds. You know why? Because Barry Bonds was a badass motherfucker. That's why. And it hit the baseball a really long way. So that's fine. I don't get agitated about stuff like that. And then the Aroldis Chapman thing happens and the Jose Reyes thing happens and all this stuff. And
people don't get upset about that, which is interesting.
And if you're a media person who calls that stuff out, like Sarah Spain, really good at her job, smart and talented journalist, she goes and does it, and she's getting killed on social media for it, and has to go and explain herself. And she's a Cubs fan, and she's conflicted by the fact that they acquired Aroldis Chapman. It doesn't mean that she doesn't enjoy the Cubs anymore. She's not hot taking it. She's just saying, I don't know quite how to react to this thing. I'm pretty sure if I was a Cubs fan, I would feel this. I would say that I'm a Cubs fan, but I admire the Cubs. I think they're an interesting. I'd like to see them win the World Series, all things being equal. I'm a orphan. Like I don't have a favorite team.
I was going to say, because you're Montreal, but I've been wondering this whole time, do you have a team?
I don't have a team. I got to follow up to that in a second. But yeah, so baseball's getting better about that. I think even sports, like even the horrible NFL is getting a little bit better about that. slowly, although the Brady thing is, and I have no interest in the Patriots. I know you do, and you're rolling your eyes, but it's getting better, but it's still not where you'd like it to be. And there's a large swath of fans that just thinks that steroids is the worst thing. And I would submit to you that in the 1990s, if you took every player that played in the 90s and you talked about like not habitual users, but how many people use steroids at least once, I'm going to say 85%. Because why the fuck would you not do that? It was the Wild West. There were more or less no rules. If I could take a pill that would make me a better sports writer and would ensure that my kids would get into whatever school they want as opposed to not, I don't know that I would be that whatever about it. I mean, I understand. I didn't cheat in school. Like I was not the person who cribbed on other people's tests, which does not make me righteous or not. It just wasn't, I wasn't wired that way. But when it comes to this and when it comes to like, I got to support my family, I got to do this, I got to do that. Yeah, you kind of do whatever you got to do. And I think that baseball players feel that way. And Barry Bonds was going to make a lot of money anyway, but maybe he wanted to go from being good to the greatest. I don't really have a problem with that. I have a big problem with somebody who lays a finger on somebody or... Gosh, Matt Bush, who was a pitcher for or was a position player actually he was drafted by San Diego. He ran over a guy and he got thrown in jail. Yeah, he ran over a guy. He's pitching for the Texas Rangers now. Like that's bad stuff.
All right, let's do this garbage 10. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, first question. I usually ask, what was your first AOL screen name? But since you're Canadian, I assume you didn't have AOL.
I did.
You did?
Yes.
What does it mean? North America Online? Like what? I thought it always meant like us, United States.
So I didn't have like the startup disk or whatever. I just used it as my instant messenger service. Like in Canada, everybody has MSN Messenger and Hotmail is their email or whatever. But Hotmail is horrible. And now it's certainly horrible. But even then it was horrible.
Right.
So I picked up AOL pretty quickly. And my screen name was literally Jonah Keri. That's it.
Oh, wow.
Boring.
That's really so interesting.
Yeah, thank you. I wasn't a kid, though. I was an adult by that point.
Furthering my theory. That 67-year-old man. Ranch or blue cheese?
So I've thought about this question because I knew that it was coming. And the answer is neither, because on my salad, I wouldn't put either of those things.
No, dipping wings.
See, I would not dip wings. I want the heat right in my face. I don't want to you're tempering. This sounds horribly.
What was the first concert you ever went to?
I saw the Rolling Stones with my mom. Oh my God. Pretty good, right?
That's
with
really
my mom.
fantastic.
It was wonderful.
Who's your favorite superhero?
I'm not a big superhero guy, so I don't have an answer for you. I know that like Batman and Superman is the one, but I just don't. Like I was a sports nerd and not a comic book nerd or whatever, so I don't. It's like sports teams. I'm agnostic.
All right. Do you put ketchup on top of your fries or on the side?
This depends on the geography of it.
Oh.
If I'm anywhere except Montreal, the answer to your question is that I put ketchup on the side because you don't want fingers on you or whatever, that stuff. However, Montreal fries, you fry them and then you fry them again and they become like double brown. Real poutine is like these brown fries with the shit on it, with the cheese curds and all that stuff. And on those kinds of fries, you put vinegar.
Ew.
Yeah. Well, it's like salt and vinegar chips.
Okay.
You're still skeptical.
No, I like
love
salt and vinegar chips. Yeah,
Yeah,
those are my
it's good.
favorite kind of chips. Okay, fair.
Yeah.
What is your guilty pleasure television show?
House Hunters International.
Really?
Because, yes, I don't watch reality TV, and I don't watch that much House Hunters International because now you have DVR and you can just choose whatever you want.
Yeah.
But if it is on, I will watch it because I laugh at the people. They're in Rome, and they're a couple, and they're thinking about moving to Rome, and they say they want a 7-bedroom villa, and they want to spend €300 a month for a 7-bedroom villa in Rome by the Spanish Steps. And I laugh because I think that's hilarious. They're not bad people, and obviously it's scripted to be this way, but it really makes me laugh.
All right, that's fair. I think mine's on HGTV too. I like to watch a lot of HGTV.
Which is Canadian.
Oh, that's right, because there's
The Property Brothers are Canadian, I think.
What's the one that I watch? The one that Jonah. What's the one I watch? The one where you go around and you try to find a bunch of houses is it Love It or List It? Yeah, that's Canadian.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, do you floss before you brush your teeth or after?
I don't floss that often. I will cop to that, but it
That's
would be
okay.
after.
They say now that it's not.
I just read the study, and this is like the big controversy. This is like previously in the year, somebody had written, I think it was in the New York Times, that guacamole should be made with peas instead of avocados. Awful. But the no flossing thing, good news, because maybe we won't die.
Your answer, though, was after?
After.
Okay. And is a hot dog a sandwich?
Yes. Everything is a sandwich.
What does that mean? Everything is a sandwich.
Everything is a sandwich. It's the same concept as a hero sandwich, where you've got something that's split open or whatever. A bun is just a bun.
You ever heard anybody call it a hero sandwich, first of all?
No, but a hero is a sandwich.
Sure.
A grinder, a hoagie, these are all sandwiches. Everything is a sandwich.
A hot dog without a bun is still called a hot dog.
That's right.
So maybe you're saying that if you put it in between the bun, it becomes a hot dog sandwich.
It is a hot dog sandwich.
Yeah, I disagree.
I have a very liberal sandwich policy.
Yeah, just
as the proper Canadian socialist that I am, we're just like we're just accepting of all people. Bring us your refugees and your sandwiches.
A sandwich. Who cares?
I mean, it has starch and cheese.
Okay. What was the last movie you went to see in the movie theater?
All right, I have to think about this. So I never go because I'm. Oh, busy. You know what? This will be braggy, but I don't give a shit. It was a movie that I acted in. How about that, Katie Nolan?
What?
That's right. There is a movie coming out. I get to plug it, called Spaceman. It is about Spaceman Bill Lee. I cited him earlier in the podcast. I did a podcast with him. It stars Josh Duhamel, who is exactly as attractive and wonderful, but he's the nicest. He's from the Midwest. He's great. So the quick backstory, which I'll try quick. There's a guy named Brett Rapkin. He's an independent filmmaker in Los Angeles, and we kind of have similar friends or whatever. I had coffee with him one day. He said, "Hey, I'm writing this script. It's about this guy, Bill Lee, and the premise is it's based on the end of his career when he was with the Montreal Expos, so there's a lot of Quebec stuff. Can you look at it and maybe punch it up for me?" I said, "Sure." We talk, not punch it up, but just offer suggestions. I did. We become friends. He says, "Why don't you just play, quote, Montreal beat writer in the movie?" I'm like, that is a big stretch. It's going to require some method acting, but I think I could probably swing it. So we go to Cal State Northridge for the day, and we shot a scene with Josh, with Sterling K. Brown, who was in the OJ thing and won an Emmy or nominated for Emmy. He's really good. Ernie Hudson from Ghostbusters was in it. Like, it's a cool movie. And it's coming out on August 19th. And actually, Katie Nolan, well, I don't think you're going to be in L.A., but, well, now I can't invite you. If you were going to be in LA, that'd be good. But we're doing a red carpet premiere this Sunday night, and I'm going to be there, and it's going to be fun. Anyway, and Josh is great, and we screened it in Montreal a few months ago, and then he took us all out for dinner and was like the best. Like, I just like legitimately have a crush on him. But the best part of it was we were walking around Montreal. We were kind of showing him the rounds, and there's these exhibition games now at Olympic Stadium where the Expos used to play. The Blue Jays play there, so he comes into town for the weekend. That's the weekend that we do it, and this was the best. Somebody comes up to him and goes, "Are you Fergie's husband?" And I was like, yes, he's been brought down a peg a little bit.
Oh my God.
But he was like, but instead of being like, oh, this guy, he's like, yes, I am. Thank you so much. I'm really proud of my wife, and I think that she's great. And I'm just like, oh, this guy's the perfect husband. He's spectacularly good looking. He's extremely nice. He, by the way, a very hardworking actor and like killed in this movie, was really good. This movie's like very funny, and it's like mostly because of him. And yeah, he's like who everybody should aspire to be. He's truly awesome.
So the last movie you saw, you were in
Spaceman, which comes out August 19th in theaters and on VOD. And it's great, and you will enjoy my acting. It is superlative.
How many minutes of screen time?
2 or 3.
Oh, I can't wait. I am going to write a review of how you did in this film.
They did a what do you call it, a trailer? My scene is in the trailer.
No.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
The face that I make, like we did, 20 takes or whatever, because that's how it goes. And so I made the same face 20 times. It's like Duhamel doing this big dramatic thing, and we're like all taken aback. So I did like the taken aback confused face. I'll do it for you right now. It was like this. And on screen, and so when we screened it in Montreal, like my high school buddies still live in Montreal and whatever. So like everybody goes to see it, and we're like rolling in the aisles. It's 5 minutes into the movie too. We're dying. Like it's like not good acting, but it was funny and whatever. So it was great. I had a lot of fun.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, last one. You're about to be put to death, so you get one final meal. What is it? I need to know the entree, the dessert, and the beverage.
Okay, so my family is Hungarian. My dad was born in Hungary. My grandparents were born in Hungary. My dad, so I'm technically first generation North American, I guess. And so my grandmother was the best cook of all time. She made Hungarian dishes. So it would be all Hungarian stuff. So she made, I don't even know how to explain this thing. It's like this thing with like beans and meat, and it's like over the top and really, really good, but it's awesome. She also, which is not Hungarian at all, made the single best fried chicken that anybody has ever made. She made like monster fried chicken. It's made with a thing called matzah meal, which is like a super Jewish thing. Mm-hmm. And it basically comes off as like much crunchier than normal fried chicken. Normal fried chicken, it's like the skin is a good part, but it's a little slimy. This is like you're crunching it. It's really good. So all kinds of stuff like that. She also makes like stuffed peppers. There's all these like things that whatever your mom or your grandma made for you. So that's it for me. It's all that stuff. That's the best stuff. For dessert, it's the same kind of thing I would want. Like the cakes that you used to make. There's this cake called dobosh. Dobosh is a Hungarian 7-layer chocolate cake. It's over the top rich. It's just chocolate all over the place. Like you don't have to be Hungarian. You would just love it. And Katie Nolan, when you go to London, if you go to the rest of Europe and you ever make it to Budapest, which scenically is one of the most beautiful cities in the world, there's a place called Gerbo. Gerbo is right on the river. You go, you order, they'll give you like a platter with all the cakes. It's too expensive. Like you'll have to basically sacrifice a kidney to do it, but whatever. I slept in like a hostel to make it happen. I'm just like, I have to have this cake. And you just sit there for 3 hours with whatever coffee or booze on the river with the cakes, and you eat Doughbush and you eat all the other cakes, and you will have the best afternoon you've ever had in your life.
You just sit and eat cake.
Cake!
I love that. Sounds like you just described a dream I had one time. You sit with booze for 3 hours and eat all the cakes?
And I also ordered a 17 euro ice cream sundae. And you know what? I would have paid 117 euro. It was like cherry ice cream with like the special Hungarian sauce, like with the cake. I ate long enough that I would be full and then have more dessert after. It became like 2 meals.
It's like a holiday, like Thanksgiving, when you're like, cool, ready for more. Let's do this.
It was. I have a very fast metabolism, as you could probably tell by how fast I talk and how crazy I am. So I could get away with this stuff too, which helps. For beverage, that's a tough one. I guess I like good craft beer or whatever. So unfortunately, I never got into the Scotch and whiskey thing, which I know that like a 12-year Scotch is like, that's the way to go. I understand that's the correct choice, or like a $400 bottle of wine, but I'm not like that.
Hey, do what you like.
So
live your truth.
Stone Brewery, which is a San Diego microbrewery, makes something called Master of Disguise, which they didn't even mass produce, but they have it in their little tap room in San Diego. Master of Disguise looks like Bud Light. Like, it's very light in color, but when you drink it, it's like an 11% porter. It's fucking good.
It's so good.
It's a good beer. Stone makes good beer. So there you go. My mismatched cake and fried chicken and beer. I guess that's actually, fried chicken, beer, and cake is not that unconventional.
Yeah, it sounds unconventional because of the specifics, but if you really boil it down, it just sounds like what the Red Sox used to eat.
Good one. I like that.
Baseball joke made Jonah Keri laugh.
Yes.
I'm good for the day.
You're looking for the high fives.
Yeah, really.
Nice.
All right, Jonah, thank you so much for doing this. This was really cool, and I could genuinely talk to you for 4 more hours. So
I'm a big admirer of everything that you do. I think that you're funny and entertaining, but like for lack of a better term, the woke shit that you do is really good. Keep fucking doing that. Like, it's serious, and not everybody does it, and it's important what you do in the industry, and I truly appreciate it.
No one has ever described me as woke, and I appreciate that very much, Jonah. Adios.
Yeah.
All right, thanks again to Jonah. I hope you all enjoyed that. Now it's time for Junk Mail.
You've got Junk Mail. Today's Junk Mail question comes from Emily Beckman at Youth Techie. She asks, if you could live in one TV show universe, which one would it be and why?
Yeah, this is a tough question. Yeah. Great question from Emily. But tough because all the shows I watch, I realized while trying to answer this question, very gloom and doom.
Yeah.
Like, do I want to live in Mr. Robot? No.
No.
Do I want to live in Fringe? No. Do I want to live in Orange is the New Black? Certainly not. No. Black Mirror? Cool sometimes, but pretty fucked up most times. Stranger Things? Not really. I mean, the 80s part is cool, but I don't want to do the other part. Like Bob's Burgers? I guess so. But it's like
that could be fun.
It's cartoon.
Yeah.
Parenthood? Everyone seems to have a really good relationship and tons of kids, and things that like seem like they're going to be bad always work out well, so maybe that. Yeah. But that's just, Game of Thrones?
Yeah, I mean, that would, my only thought on that is like winter is like definitely coming soon, and I don't think I want to be around for it.
Winter hasn't fucking come yet?
Well, or
I'm at the end of the season before this last season, and I assumed when I start the next season, winter hasn't fucking come yet? Is this show serious?
Yeah.
Isn't there only like 1 or 2 more seasons left?
Yeah, there are 2. Yeah, there are gonna be 2 more seasons.
They better be entirely in the winter. Winter better fucking come and stay here for 2 seasons, because we've been winter has been. The first episode of the entire show was called Winter is Coming.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope,
unless
winter came and like I missed that episode, I don't think it's coming.
What about when all the people at the... Spoiler alert, block yours for skip ahead 15 seconds. What about the end of this season 5 or whatever when all the zombies rose up?
Yeah, well those are the people that I don't think that was the official coming of winter, but like they're coming soon and
they're there.
I don't want to be... They're like... I don't want to be in that universe when they come. So that would definitely not be my answer.
But I'm irate at the moment. I wanted to not be breaking out hives. I'm bringing out more hives now.
This is upsetting for you to hear.
Jesus Christ.
I understand.
Bachelorette? where
I mean, that's
everything is
what a world.
guaranteed.
What a world.
Where men fight over women and
Yeah.
the woman doesn't have to pick them if she doesn't feel like maybe one day they might cheat or
Yeah.
lie to her.
No consequences.
And everyone gets to have all your hands in marriage. Maybe I want to
Perfect.
live in the Bachelorette.
Great answer.
What's your answer?
I thought about this, and I thought about Friday Night Lights for a little bit to live in
Ooh.
Dillon, Texas. But then I decided Lost, because I just feel like living on an island and just
It
like
wasn't a vacation for them.
I
I don't know
know
how
it
much of
wasn't-
Lost you watched.
No, I watched all of it, and I also feel like Lost needed someone to be there to be like, whoa, like we still haven't answered some questions, and I would want to like be that person. If they're like, we need to get off the island, I'd be like, wait, but what's up with Walt? We still haven't figured that out yet, and I'm not happy with what an answer of what the smoke monster is. So I would
What's
want
the polar bear doing here?
Yeah,
Let's be
I would
honest.
wanna-
Don't just say
I would wanna
science
be a part of that.
experiments. That doesn't count.
No, I don't exactly. And like who was shooting at them in the canoe? Like I would just want to be there to be like, we need these answers before we leave. So
I respect that.
So that I think
I respect
Lost,
that.
Yeah.
What about like I was thinking Grey's Anatomy because every now and then like I'd like the person that I love to die.
Oh,
And that happens like
That's-
every other episode of
sad.
Grey's Anatomy.
That's
Something
just-
really
that's just
tragic
sad.
happens.
that's just
Sometimes
it.
you just need life to be interesting by constant tragedy. And I feel like every single episode of Grey's Anatomy, someone important died or had a miscarriage.
That's a good point.
Like constantly.
How about on a lighter note? How about Friends? Because they just hang out all day.
How
and
about
they,
rent-controlled apartments?
Yeah,
Like that
exactly.
apartment. Yeah, I'd love to live in the
Yeah.
fictional universe
There's
that
the
is
Friends.
New York City in Friends because no one could afford an apartment that fucking big.
That's what. I was
And to
thinking,
live
too.
across the hall from your friends would
Yeah.
be dope.
And
That'd
just
be
to-
like college.
And to have like a permanent spot in a coffee shop with the couches that you're like, oh, we just get to always sit
yeah,
there.
that's
Like,
a
sign
really
me up
good
for that
answer.
life.
I would like to live in the fictional universe that is Friends.
Perfect.
Yeah, good answer.
Good answer,
And
good answer.
second answer, Bachelorette.
Good answer.
All right, cool. Guys, that's it. That's it for our podcast. We will be back to do this again next week. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes and rate us and leave a comment, but only if you're going to rate us 5 stars, only if the comment is nice. Because it was Tom Brady's birthday yesterday. So that's
good
really
reason.
going to do
Good
the opposite. You can also watch the video of this podcast on YouTube later today. It should be up if you want to see just how many hives I broke out into. Or you can listen on Google Play, Art19, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or the vent that your heat and air conditioning come out of in your kitchen.
Yeah.
Has to be in your kitchen.
Yeah.
But the vent, on the floor, on
Yeah.
the ceiling, if you get close enough to it, you can always
Great
just hear the
quality.
garbage.
Great
and
audio
parts.
quality. Yep.
Thanks again to Jonah Keri. Thanks to these new bomb-ass podcast mics.
Yeah.
Finally. And thanks to producer Dave.
Thanks.
And to, I guess, producer Ashley, producer Dr. Schwachter, producer Colmar. A lot of people sitting in this room not saying many words. And thanks to all of you guys for listening. Bye. Love you. Mean it.